Thanks very much, Stephen. And George, that was so inspiring. I wish I lived in Bristol. I think it's very enabling. So anyone who's here from Bristol, I think there's an open invitation there from George to get stuck in. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a design professional, I actually trained as a nurse. But I became very concerned about the environment and the impact that we were having on it and wanted to do something about it. And I think, hopefully, people in Bristol who also feel that way and in the cities where you're all from, I think that sense of, I don't know where I felt, how I felt, why I felt empowered, but I think the sort of localism agenda and neighbourhood planning and transition towns and all of these movements are all ways in which people who are not qualified, like probably you all are, can get involved in these things. So we are a charity. We win awards for being a social enterprise, I think, because we always take a very sort of business-minded, professional approach and look at how things can work in the mainstream economy. And we work on sustainable communities, so new build and retrofit, but also working with companies and looking at how we can have the products and services we need. But most of all, what we're all about is sustainable living. And we started out in the UK and now we are working around the world. And modern life is great, isn't it? I've got my iPad. We were just saying, how do you say Curitiba? Is it an I or is it an A? And you can just quickly look it up. It's fantastic. Life is fantastic now. But in so many other ways, it's not, People are worried about air pollution and their health. People around the world, it's not fair. There's an awful population is growing so fast. There's a lot of problems in the world. And in fact, if everyone lived the global middle-class lifestyle that we all enjoy, then we would need 3 planets to support us, and we don't have 3 planets. You can see that in about 1985, we started, instead of living off nature's bounty every year, we started to eat into the capital instead of living off the interest. And you can see how carbon is a big part of that, the growth in sort of use of fossil fuels. So we've got to decarbonise our economy, but it's much more than that. It's the land take of everything we're consuming. And different countries are consuming at different rates, or people who live in these different countries are consuming at different rates. That's the sustainable level. And you can see up here the UK, somewhere quite high up, not as bad as the US lifestyle, but when you get down to Haiti and Mali and countries like that, people just don't have enough, and that's not fair, and I'm not happy about that, and I know a lot of people think that's not okay. And if you look at that lifestyle, you can, how does it break down? You can start to get some power over that. So housing and construction and maintenance is about 8% of that 3-planet footprint. Home energy use is about 18%. Transport, 15%. Food is a big chunk of it, if you look at ecological footprint, that is. Consumer goods, 14%, all those iPads and computers and things. And then the sort of infrastructure that we all enjoy. So this is your or my average footprint. And obviously what we need is to get down to 1 planet living where we can live happy, healthy lives within a fair share of the world's resources, wherever we live in the world. That's what we need. And also we need to leave a bit of space, make space for wildlife and wilderness. And I think most people, if I say that to you, if you say it to anybody, if you think about it yourself, you think, well, that's just too much of a tall order. I like my iPad. I like my life. I like, there's lots of things about my life. I cannot imagine how I could cut that by 2/3. And I think the lovely thing about the work that we do, the projects that we do, where we are actually trying to actually do 1 planet living, is that I can really see that it can be done. And it's just stuff that we all know what to do. All those things that George talked about, it all will add up to sustainability if we could just all do it. So, for example, recycle your paper to an efficient mill and buy it back again. A 93% reduction in the ecological footprint. No-brainer. It's good to recycle. Actually, that makes a big difference. Local products, local charcoal product. An 85% reduction in the transport CO2. At the Bed's Eco Village, a 71% reduction in your personal CO2. So these things give me hope, and I want to give you hope today that actually it is perfectly possible if we just get on with it. And as I said, when we started out, we were actually working in rented rooms in an ecology centre and working on these paper and charcoal projects. And then we said, we need a new office. So we thought, let's build an eco office. I just don't know how we had the gall, really. We started looking around for local sites, and we paired up with Bill Dunster Architects and Chris Twin from Arab Engineers, and we put this project together. And then we took it around, and Dickon Robinson, who's here somewhere, the lovely Dickon, it's like the man from Del Monte, he says yes. Dickon said yes to BedSed, and never forget that, Dickon. It's made such a difference, not just to us, but also to lots of people around the world, and given them some hope. People still come, 12 years after it was finished, to come and have a look. We're still doing guided tours, and people learn about it at school. So it was a big risk, and I think you have to take a risk in life sometimes. To the important things, there's always a level of risk involved. So we got started on that, and I think because we weren't architects and engineers, we were thinking about, what's it going to be like when we live there? What's it going to be like when we work there? So I think we brought that sustainable living aspect more into BedSed. Obviously, they were great architects, great engineers, and we had a lot of strategies. And we were designing in sustainability right from the start, so at that master planning stage, because it's all about, as you probably know as urban designers, the layout, the density, all of these things are important. We had a zero carbon energy strategy, sustainable building materials, and you use as much energy driving a car as you do energy in the home, so it's very important to have a green transport plan. Water strategy, composting and recycling, local and sustainable food. So we had all these strategies and more. We tried to think of everything. We got quite carried away. And I think a sort of major thing about it, and a major thing for you to think about in your work, is it sort of came down a bit to, just make it easy to do the right thing and difficult to do the wrong thing. Once you know what that is, so you know where your impacts arise, and then you can think about, how are we going to get that down, and how are we going to make it easier for people? Because, if your car's just sitting outside the door, then it's really easy to pile in the car, to pop down and buy a pint of milk. It's a sunk cost. You've already paid for it. Whereas if the car if you don't own a car, or you don't have a second car, and you're using the car club car, so that's what we did. We made a space in the hallway so you could put your bicycle right by the front door, so you can just go straight out with your bike, which is what I do all the time. I should say I live there as well as work there. You might need to use a car sometimes, so we had car clubs, and I think that's been one of the big takeaways of BedSed, that people come down to have a look, and local authorities, whoever, they think, we could have a car club. It reduces the amount of road space you need to build for car parking spaces, and that creates a completely different sense of the community, because if the roads are reduced and people are using the spaces more, that actually means that it's more friendly, the children are playing, it just creates a different atmosphere. So what we found when we analysed it was that obviously everybody talks about low energy buildings, and it is really, really important, and generating renewable energy is really, really important. But what we found was that when we analysed it, the transport, the waste and the food all added up to nearly as much as the savings that were coming from having almost passive house buildings and photovoltaics and so on. So lifestyles are as important as green buildings, and making it easy for people to live a sustainable life is very important. So this is Nicole. She actually worked with Dickon she lived at BedSed, but she's actually moved to Oxford, where she's working on the eco town there now. But she tries very hard, and she got down to 1.7 planets and a carbon footprint of 6 tonnes a year, which is good, But we thought, if we've done everything we could possibly think of, then why haven't we achieved one planet living? And the answer is because all of this infrastructure, which is almost a planet's worth, gets lumped on. So what it means is it's no good just doing nice little projects, you've got to do it across the whole city, you've got to do it across the whole country, we've got to do it across the whole world, because we live in our houses, but the minute we go outside, we're using all this infrastructure, all of this government and business infrastructure. So everybody has to get stuck in. And although we achieved some amazing results in terms of environmental sustainability, so 71% reduction in personal CO2, 50 to 65% reduction in car use compared to the people over the road, half as much water being used, all sorts of increase in biodiversity, all sorts of fantastic stats. When you ask people what they like, they said, oh, well, the social side is fantastic here. Oh, it's such a great community spirit. It's really non-isolating. You know, they're sort of direct quotes. And I think that's the thing. You know, you'd think that you've reduced footprint and great, you know, and everybody being very worthy. But what they all say is, we're all having a great time here. We love it here. They're very happy. So this all went so well. We never thought the project would create such a stir. It was a lovely surprise that it all turned out so well, you know, and it wasn't perfect, and we shared the knowledge about what didn't work as well as what went well. But we decided we'd formalise that into a framework so that, you know, we could use it. So a lot of the BEDZ strategies, we just formalised that into these 10 principles of One Planet Living. And there you can see the next level down. So zero carbon in. So this, if you remember anything, remember this. I put it on the back of my business card, and you can go on the internet and get this. So zero carbon in building energy use. We cannot have sustainable living unless we have a totally decarbonised electricity grid by 2030. And basically we need to get off fossil fuels for our homes, because we still need them for things like transport and aviation and so on. Zero waste to landfill, sustainable transport, just help people to reduce their car use in these different ways, and it's all perfectly possible. Sustainable materials, local and sustainable food, sustainable water, land use and wildlife, very important. What is life without the beauty of nature? And it's been shown to have positive effects on people as well, you know, biophilia. Culture and heritage, it's really important to sort of maintain that sense of place and also create a new sort of culture of sustainability. Equity in the local economy, support the local economy, like George's usual Bristol pounds and go to the barber, and you know, pay the fair price for things. And health and happiness, encouraging active, sociable, meaningful lives for good health and well-being. And of course, they're all intertwined. You know, they're a knock-on result of each other in many ways. And how we use this sustainable living, One Planet Living process is, you know, first of all, you need for your project, whether you're an individual for a housing project or a city project, first of all, gather the information. You know, what's the benchmark? Where are we now? And then get all the stakeholders together and work together to create an action plan using these 10 principles. This is the process that we use. And it's a bit like a charrette that they use in LEED certification process. So the idea is get the naysayers as well as the people that love sustainability, get the finance person in, spend a bit of time working through it. And the interesting thing is how much creativity comes out of that process. Then get an action plan and then publish that so everyone can see, so you can share knowledge and review how you're getting on every year. So this is our approach to sort of formalising the sustainable living approaches that we found seem to work. And it's fantastic that's being used in about 12 countries formally with partners who we are in touch with and work with, and also downloaded in, I think the last count, 66. We've got a free toolkit online and it's been downloaded in 66 countries. So people just can use it themselves. It's very easy and simple, and people can just do this themselves. We used it for the Olympics, for the bid stage sustainability strategy. Had great fun, spent a lot of time in China. Such an opportunity to do some great things there, working with China merchants, property developers. And it's interesting to see how a lot of the things that Chinese people value about fresh, good food could get swept away by sort of turning into a sort of even bigger America, which is what could happen there. But plenty of people are interested in doing things differently. And again, it was so funny when I went there when it was finished, to see that people, it was just like a sort of bedstead in China. And the kids were out playing outside, you know, the narrow streets, the pedestrian areas, and people just were happy. People were happy. Working in Tanzania as well, and taking the whole thing to the UN, because we can't do everything. We just want to take these, oh, look, it can be done examples to the UN through the Rio +20 process. And we're going to get these sustainable development goals, which will apply to every one of us. It's going to follow on from the Millennium Development Goals. And I think there's going to be a big sort of component of it that is about sustainable living. It's going to be about how people live their lives. It's a people-centred thing. So all that's been going on globally, but back in Sutton, where Bedshead is, our local authority decided, we'll commit to it for the whole borough, which was fantastic in late 2008. And we've sort of rolled it into neighbourhood planning. So there's a whole lot of community activity going on where people are saying what they'd want. It's a suburban area, very typical. If we can do it there, we can do it anywhere. Workshops in the church hall, knocking on doors, talking to people. And the interesting thing is it started to get results. And it's always amazing when you actually get some results and think, oh, it seems to be working. Sutton had a 19% reduction in their carbon emissions over the period, came in last year. Oh, really? Great. They've been working on smarter travel planning. And so it's mainly around people's behavioural choices and a bit of energy efficiency. We've got a community farm, which is the largest community farm in London, got going. And of course, can't stop Boris, he's going to come down and have a look. And I think Ken and Boris have been good examples of how a mayor can really be passionate about their city and make a difference. We're working on sort of community regeneration, so working with the shopkeepers. So that's Mo with his solar-powered coffee van, which means he can go off-grid. And there's all sorts of... I think it's important that there are advantages which are more than just sustainability. So it means he doesn't have to find a plug point when he goes out with his van. And you don't have the coffee fumes because he's got the engine... the coffee fumes. The engine fumes because the van's running. So it's helped him to sort of go where he hasn't been before. And we've got things like the first MSC fish and chip shop in London, and with recycled chip fat, and we're doing this whole sort of very cheap regeneration, sustainable regeneration in one of the high streets in Hackbridge where Bedshead is, and slowing down all the traffic and reducing the road space, increasing the pedestrian space. And where big companies can get involved in this too. So B&Q, who are already using One Planet Living, they've been working with Sutton to actually do a retrofitting in the borough as well. And with the college, it's a centre for, I can't remember, it's a skills centre for renewable energy and energy efficiency, so training up young people. And there's a lot of jobs in this, so Sutton see it as it's a green economy thing. And in Brighton, where we did our second sort of big project that BioRegional were particularly leading on and involved in, people all moved in. It was built at the normal range of build costs. It does enable One Planet Living, but it didn't cost more, whereas Bedshead did cost a bit more. Sales went twice as fast because people want this. Rental values are high and retention is high where they're being rented out. And we've got a report coming out in a few weeks about how that's going. But people have lost, one couple lost 25 kilograms. It's car free, so they're not using a car anymore. They're walking around and they've just lost a huge amount of weight. So I think it's not just about being a goody two-shoes. As George said, it's healthy, it's fun, it's better to live sustainably. And then we were delighted last year when the full council at Brighton and Hove voted to commit to be a One Planet city. So they like what they saw at One Brighton, much as the same that Sutton liked what they saw at Bedshead. And so they've committed to do it across the whole city, which is fantastic. And Middlesbrough also committed to this. We use the sustainable living approach to sort of infiltrate into the eco-towns. I was on the Eco-Towns Challenge panel. And we're working in Bicester, so it'll be interesting. That's just started on site, so it'll be interesting to see how that all follows through. But again, Cherwell District Council, the local council, making this a sort of a whole community-wide approach. Briefly looking at London, we modelled the whole of the City of London and found that with 64 measures, we could achieve it. And it was things like flying half as often in 30% more efficient planes, eating half as much meat and dairy, which is actually healthier, making your clothes last a bit longer, as well as the obvious energy saving in the home, But it did all add up to sustainability, and it actually sounded quite nice. So finally, I'd say that One Planet Living is a job for all of us. Creating sustainable living is a job for all of us, as you can see here. We can't do it on our own. People can do something to a certain extent about their housing, how they use energy, are they efficient, what their transport choices and food. But, they need the help of property developers, local authorities with that. And up this end, in the public services and a lot of what business is doing, that is a job for business. It's not something that people can do. So I suppose, really, I'd just like to finish by saying, I hope that all of you may have picked up something today. I hope you're all committed to sustainable living, because I think it's the only way to go. Because if we don't go there, we can create resilient communities where people are living better lives. It's not about a massive change. It's just about a slight tweak and adjustment so we can continue to have the good lives that we do have, but they're going to be even better in the future. Thank you.